So you're back. I've already deleted 5 or 6 hours of video talking about shock and my mother's. I feel really empty. Yeah, my mom's not. I feel really empty when I come over. Yeah. Whew. Like knowing my mom is the most thankless possible thing you could do. And so that's you're trying to convince me it's like the most thankless thing you could ever do. Oh my god. You know, I think my father eventually figured it out too. And I've known other women like my mom. Like they can be perfectly nice in so many wonderful ways. Like what interesting, wonderful people, but how completely useless to your health. You know, how completely how you know her second husband must have passed away. Just thinking, who is this woman that is beside me? You know, this is not my wife. This is not my wife. This is someone who has left me alone, and I've brought them with me to suffer alone the last minute of my life. And someone who hurts men, watches crime stories every day. We talk about gender studies. The ultimate gender studies is learning to live around a black widow mother who brings men to death. Yeah. And I don't mince words. My mom can be a zephyr of heaven and a bane of death. No. It's interesting. It's my food and smell aggressive. I'm starting my day and you get your phone out. And you don't say, hey, can we talk about life? I'm not like you. I don't just not know. I'm good feeling you. I told this lady that I like to call, my personal home every day because I like to believe that somebody cares about me, but I know that she doesn't. Not as a little boy and not as now. I remember once I treated myself. This lady I knew down the street said to me, asked me about my family or whatever, and I said I'm an orphan, and it made perfect sense. I was just like, oh, I finally said the right word. You know? Oh, that makes sense. Oh yeah, reality. I'm an orphan. That's right. But like everything in my life, I don't get to really call myself that because it's not like absolutely true. It's just pretty much true, pretty much effectively the way things are. It's yeah, it's awful. I mean, when your parents disown you emotionally in any way, I really feel for people. I've met children in the world who've been disowned, and it's absolutely the most excruciating. I feel like it's my purpose in life to write about how excruciating it is to be abandoned by your parents in life, over and over and over again. I write in one of my books, it's like to know my mom is to grieve my mom. She she produces grief all around her every day. having said that, and gone through all my shock, I feel confident that I can come home today to a non-violent home and have my bath and go to bed and have my day to feel, yeah, the worst things in the world you want to feel, like the one person you care about doesn't care about you and you're really completely alone in the world. Um, but we'll take it day at a time. To deal with that shock of being a breech birth to a psychopathic female, to have some idea of like what kind of life she had and stuff like that. But it's very hard to believe that my mother, in all respect, had the wherewithal to care for a single child, let alone four, or even an animal. I know that we got rid of our dog. And what should have been some of the most beautiful years of all of our lives have now been lost to years of violence and grief. My parents systematically destroyed the temple of childhood, the temple of home around their children, and just grabbed it away from them and sold it out from under them and just sold out, period, in every possible way. My brother was away at Bible college. My dad sold the house, moved us out of it. My dad and my mom really controlled this process. I wasn't invited into it at all. I was just in shock. I was being abused. And never told my brother that he was selling, never, like, come home and pack up some stuff or whatever. Just sold the house. I mean, my brother just must have been like, oh, okay, my family's pretty fucked. Yeah, my dad is a fucked up individual. Like, why wouldn't you even just call him and say, hey? Because my mom and dad, when they do things, they do them all by themselves. My dad never really invited anyone else onto his boat. He would invite you onto the boat, but he would do everything. He would never tell you what he was doing or how to do anything or show us, do this or do that. And so we just sort of sat there and enjoyed the ride. I remember feeling so. When I think about that boat he took us out on, that red on the inside there, um, I feel a little bit of joy. Like, he took us out to do things. My mom didn't. And we went. It must have been so fun to put your life jackets in here. My dad's big mistake was that I don't think he had any idea how important this was to his children and how much they really enjoyed his company. I think it was always just a bit of a show for him. I don't know what it was. I guess what I'm saying is that I think I'm experiencing the results, residual or not, throughout my life, of parents who didn't emotionally connect to me. Does that make sense? Amidst all this other stuff, like as you go through the shock, it's like my parents did not and do not emotionally connect to me. My siblings don't emotionally connect to me. They don't have any connection to me. They have no reason to connect to me. They've never really connected to me. And they've added so much violence to our relationship. They've imported so much violence into it. That in a sense it was like my intelligence drew out that violence to my body, to my mom. I draw it out of people. So I see exactly who they are. I see exactly what they're capable of. You can love someone. But if you can do anything that makes someone you love punch you or do something bad to you, like I don't mean like you hurt them to see what they'll do to you. I mean like you accidentally do anything that makes them do that to you, then you must either be a bad person or they're a bad person, right? So, I've always, it's like my right and wrong when you deal with violence, and there's areas where someone can be violent to you, and you might be, well, I'm really not sure if that was violence. Maybe you don't use those words, and so on and so on. There's other things that are like obviously violent, and when you have a lot of obvious violence, the little violence now looks like violence, whereas to you it might be like, oh, that's not really violence. But then I can see violence happening. I've had experiences where I can see someone's about to commit violence because I know what people look like, right? And they can start to look really happy. It's like people who commit suicide that get really calm because they've made a decision. And it must be nice, right? I want that calm. It's like, hey guys, yeah, I'm okay. Um, Everything's all right now. Yeah, I feel like I'm a different person. And people that are come out to make violence, they can get very excited. They can look happy. They can be laughing and smiling. I mean, we've all seen it on YouTube, right? Yeah, yeah, bro, whatever, bro. And then it's like boom, 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 Or women, as well. Like, I guess in a way, without sounding like I know more than I do, let's just say that as people who didn't know a lot about violence, it stands to reason that people who do eventually become violent, if you're watching them, are displaying whatever an expert would look at and say these are the signals of violence. In other words, I think the body telegraphs what it's going to do, or that it's going to lose its cool in a second. You know what I mean? So we can all kind of pick that up. You don't have to be expert. Like, maybe you can pick it up, maybe sometimes you can't. It depends on the situation. Like, I mean, are you really? I hope you're not in an environment where people are becoming violent on a regular basis. But if you happen to see that, I've noticed that I can pick it out. Like, my brain just like, okay, I'm watching something here. Whereas other people, like literally 50 people around this, I won't go into it, but were completely ignoring it or trying very hard to. That what I could not ignore. And this is where I've trained my mind, right? And so, you might say, like, if I was a character in a movie, like, oh, he's seen some rough times, to focus on that. Like, I don't feel like a person who is a violent person, or, I never wanted to throw a punch at someone. The one person I punched, my brother, committed an atrocious act of violence toward me, and the punch wasn't unprovoked, by the way. It was the person. My brother had already punched me with his eyes. The look in his eyes. It was a threat. I was threatened. I was punching out of being threatened. I wasn't punching out of malice. I wasn't punching. He was gaslighting me. I wasn't punching saying, I'm going to do this to you and I want you to just be dead. I was punching him because this person was threatening me. He had said to me, you're leaving. Like, my home, you're leaving. He said, you're leaving. I'm not leaving, you are. After, it's like, that's gaslighting. He was basically setting me up he set me up to become angry. He set me up to draw me out. He wanted to get a reaction from me. He wanted a reaction in order to get control. And he didn't get the first reaction they want. Then he went for the second reaction. And when he got what he wanted, he acted and then tried to get what he wanted sexually. But it's not sex, right? These two men had set up a subterfuge, and then raped me on my kitchen floor. Got to eliminate me as a person and get in service of getting what they both had increasingly wanted from me, starting with taking property out of my room. They had absolutely no sense of morals. My brother, hugely influential in eliminating any normal sense of boundaries. He simply didn't have them. He didn't have them. He was basically living inside the circle that you would never want someone like my brother to live inside your circle. Maybe violent people pass you on the street every day, but they're not in your circle. My brother had camped out in my circle probably since we were children, and I didn't realize that. So something you couldn't have predicted was that he was living and making decisions based upon living inside my circle. He didn't see my circle. He was inside my circle. He didn't see the boundaries that should have been there. His friend was easily provoked to ignore them as well. They read what they wanted into my words. They read what they wanted. I mean, when you have to start explaining to people, like, how to keep the peace while you're trying to go to school and write essays and not steal things from you and not threaten you and not ignore you in your discomfort about threatening. And nothing should be threatening to begin with, right? Nothing in your home should be threatening at all. So these are all threatening things. These are awful, awful threatening things. And how these people, family had been gaslighting me basically since I was 16. With my dad hitting me at the table or whatever, and sometimes attempting to goad me in the house and goad me into a fight and this or that, and then create stories and slander around me. My dad, I didn't know the word then, but was gaslighting me, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to provoke me into anything or everything where he could just get some control of my life and be satisfied that he got what he wanted from me. So you think of a man who calls himself a father that will do anything to get what he wants from you. And I hope I'm never in that situation. Maybe that's why I have never had a girlfriend or a son. Because I would never want to feel that way about my child, that they're not giving me what I want, so I have to find a way to hurt them and provoke them. That I would push my son or threaten him in any way. And I hope that if I did, he would behave as well as I did, I guess. And try to feel it as best he could. But you're not unchanged as a man. You're not unprovoked. It does make you angry. You do become bitter. You do become volatile. Gaslighting and scapegoating is meant to fill the scapegoat with violent energy. They're literally just piping venom into you. There's some venom in it. Take that. Take that. And what about that? I don't like that either. Until eventually, you push your father or you say something, and it's like, oh, look at you, full of anger. And then there's more and more. Look what he did. He pushed me. And it's awful to see your own father doing this day in and day out. Day in and day out. He doesn't even know what he's doing. Right? He's releasing tension. He's letting out rage from his father, his mother. He's not your father. You're certainly not what he thought you were. He thinks of you as something quite other than what he thought you were. You're not you anymore in his eyes. You're his victim. You feel scared, but to him, you're not you. You're not the Landon that he likes. You're another Landon. You're another son. This isn't the son he loves. This isn't the son he took on vacations. You're someone different. I don't like you. Because all you've done is grown up a little bit or a little smarter. Now you scare him. And you didn't even realize it. Before you even realized it, he was already kind of, not that into you. One day I was in my dad's truck going to his business and down the highway, and he said to me in a not terribly sincere way, and you'll see what I mean when I say this, either instantly or after you think about it. He said that he loved me and that I was his favorite. Is that not the most chilling thing a parent could say to a child? No, maybe he meant it. Maybe that was something he thought that I would like hearing. And that all he was thinking is like, oh, he would say, oh, Len, I just thought you'd like hearing that. Right? When I'm with you, you're my favorite. It's just not something you say to children when they have siblings. Because they're smart enough to figure out the kind of insincere tones of such a statement. He didn't need to isolate me from the group in order to favor me with his love. He could just say, hey, Landon, how you doing? Because a normal person who enjoys your company would have just said, hey, you want to turn on the radio? Okay. I mean, it's a pedophile if it's not your dad, but if it's your dad, it's like, right? If it's your dad, it's okay. If it's a pedophile, right? They know how to groom children because they treat them the way they should be treated, in a way. Think about that. Sorry, I'm not a pedophile, but think about this. This is all clinical research here. Because the way I would want my dad to treat me, and the way I would never treat a child, by the way, except my own son, is, hey, we're together in the truck, do you want to listen to the radio? How you doing? Or, okay, you just want to be quiet? All right, I'll drive. And you're just hanging out with your friend. You're hanging out with your son, in this case. You're hanging out with your dad. This is now the time if there's an awkward silence, hey, how's school? And maybe I want to just ask you a few questions to get you talking, maybe, and once that jaw gets moving, who knows what you'll say and how you feel. And guess what? You can do that with me because I'm safe. And I'm sorry if you haven't felt that way, but, I'm here. And I don't want you to be too scared in life, Lionel. I don't want you to be uncomfortable, okay? I know there's been some uncomfortable things in the home and things like that. And I don't want you to feel it's about you or feel uncomfortable. Because if someone really likes you at all, your dad, they kind of talk to you. and find out how you feel. And he loved me and he thought he was his favorite, but he didn't need me to say anything. I just sat there, you know. If I was a child in a movie, whether I was 15 or 16 or 17, you would just see me take it with, you know, heavenly aplomb. Like, I guess I'll take whatever I can get from that, Dad. And look out the window. Appreciate it. You know? I didn't have the bitterness and the gall to see through the bullshit. He still was talking to me like a child. And yet, I was much older than a child, in a sense. But you could see how you just, you know, that's the way he wanted to talk to me. You know, that to him was a conversation that he wanted to have. And I think he was happy with the result. And that's about it. So we can kind of see the mental, vocal, emotional range of my father in any kind of real sense. And I don't know, you know, exactly what the context was or what was happening that day, or, you know, and this, that, you would say. And you would say, like, as much as I love my mom and I want to know her and maybe not anger her anymore, you would say, you know, what about your dad? I mean, he probably didn't always feel that way. Maybe your dad, when he was stressed, and maybe your mom and other things were really making him frustrated, this was his sort of pigeon tongue for, I'm trying to, you know, I'm dialing in being a father right now, even at the risk of sounding like a pedophile. You know, please forgive my awkwardness. Actually, you're not sounding enough like a pedophile, Dad. A pedophile would have put more effort into getting a response from me to develop a rapport. And my dad would be like, shit, son, you're too intelligent. Get out of the truck. You know, because if you think about it, if my dad had behaved to me more like a pedophile, he'd actually been closer to my dad. Because when your dad behaves like a pedophile, it's not a pedophile. Right? By the way, forgetting and accepting physical sex acts, okay? From vanilla penetration to everything else. I'm not talking about, like, you know, it's normal, your dad should be like a pedophile touching you and stuff like that. I'm saying that the part of the development of the rapport shit. Okay? So, the part of the development of rapport, that part, not anything else. So for your dad, it's rapport, and it never goes beyond rapport. You're throwing the ball around, and of course, nothing, absolutely 0.0%. The definition of absolute nothing is sexual with your dad, right? Okay, so we got that cleared, and that would be creepy and strange. And it is unfortunate that I have met people, women will talk about it more than men, who have been touched when they were young and chased and hiding under beds because somebody wants to touch them physically and have that kind of interaction, which maybe someone did to them and someone did to them and someone did to them and someone did to them in a kind of chain that doesn't lead to the moon. It just leads to a living hell. So that, you know, one old lady sat in her apartment and told me, you know, that she would just sit there and listen to the world, and every now and then the guy above would play his guitar or his drums or his drum, and she said that was the highlight of her day. She had no connection to anything or anyone. She became a little aggressive with me one day, and that was it. But I guess she really didn't have anyone. She had a son whom she said was sexually molested and feared that was a sexual molester himself, had a heavy drug addiction in Vancouver, and whom she never saw. And had several bouts of cancer, and of course there's the sexual abuse, and probably the siblings who've died already. And she lives on a pension. And okay, so Pearl. And you know, I can't save the pearls of the world. And I would have if I could. You know, I sat with her and had coffee a number of days, and we chatted. And that was it. You know, I mentioned that I do a lot of journaling, and she picked up a journal and said she really enjoyed it. She was writing the story of her life. I said, cool, sounds cool. And she said it was just pouring out of her. Yeah, and I'm glad that she got something from that. I don't think I've ever shared anything with someone that actually took my advice. And I wish her well. You see, I can't be her father and mother, and like no one can be my father and mother, and I can't change that for her. I can't. I'm sorry. It's just a little bit of shock because you meet people who tell you these things, and you just It's hard to take it all in. You know, literally and figuratively. I mean, I met so many old people who are so fucking sad and so fucking lonely. You would not believe it. And here I am getting